Welcome, everyone, to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. I'm a networking expert and the author of the upcoming book, No Strangers, How to Build Community, One Relationship at a Time. My why is the pursuit of mastery, and the goal of this podcast is to lock arms on a lifelong mission of daily personal growth to become the best version of ourselves. So let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. We are joined by a special guest. She is a choreographer, a creative director, and a performance coach. So welcome to the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Miss Stefanie Eby. Stefanie, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Just keeping up in this crazy time that, the world has handed us. So just staying sane, I would say, and keeping busy in all the ways you can.
These are some pretty crazy times, and we've actually never met in person before. I mean,
I know.
We've been social media BFFs for a few years. I get to see the progress that you're making. I get to see all the success you're having by offering value to people, which is amazing. And I'm excited to connect with you over the next hour or so.
Yeah, amazing.
So we're going to go back to the beginning. How did you get into dance? Where did this love of dance, where did this passion for dance come from?
Well, it started definitely the first memory I could think of when I knew the transition happened was I was at a gymnastics competition because I used to do rhythmic gymnastics when I was younger. And I just got put in it as like an activity. I think my mom was just testing out a number of different types of activities that I was as a kid trying out to see what stuck. And
did you get the piano lessons like everyone else?
Yep. I got singing lessons,
swimming lessons.
I had taekwondo. I did ballet. Like I touched so many different things as a kid. And so, yeah, when I started out, I think what identified that I was big into dance was the fact that when I was at a competition for a rhythmic gymnastics competition, I forgot my routine. And rhythmic gymnastics is very technical. It's very about like flexibility and strength and that type of aspect, but it's all about like showcasing those lines and details. And I forgot my routine, and my automatic reaction when I got stuck on stage was to shimmy shake. So when I started shimmy shaking, my mom said when I got off stage, she knew right then, like, yeah, I think she likes dance more. So we moved me into dance classes, and it kind of was the rest went from there.
And do you have a favorite style of dance? I recently started going on some dates with a dancer, and she's all about bachata. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that style, so I can get some, some brownie points for actually knowing something about it. Do you have a favorite style of dance, and why?
So, well, fun fact, bachata is actually like very specific. It's all ballroom dancing you're essentially addressing. So that's a style in itself. A lot of the styles that I address actually aren't in ballroom world. It's the one area that I'm familiar with ballroom, but I don't actually have technical training in it. It's the one area I grow in. But from the department of favorites, it's a hard thing to say. I think I really am about I love versatility. I love being handed different options. I've never really stuck to one thing, but people tend to say I sit somewhere between jazz, funk, and contemporary. So contemporary, for context for yourself, is like more about emotionally driven pieces. They tend to be slower. They can be more like channeling your Sam Smith or your Ariana Grande during a slow song kind of thing, like where she's really belting. That usually is the pocket that people know me for, and it is something I do get drawn towards. Jazz funk more speaks to more of my like groovy, upbeat, Bruno Mars energy, but I also like to hit hip hop, and I can be sexy. So they kind of like all come into one category a lot of times, called jazz funk. But if you ask me what my personal favorite is, I don't know if I have one. I do love a good hip hop number. You throw me a Jabberwockies piece or something from like the old school hip hop days, and I'm like living for it. But I think I'm also a burlesque lover. So I hate to say that I don't have a favorite, but I would say that I love to, I have favorite elements of every piece of style. And I love seeing them come to life in the appropriate contexts.
I feel like asking a dancer their favorite style of dance is like asking a parent like who their favorite child is or something. Like it's
Yes,
a
no,
little taboo, but just getting to know kind of the different styles. You know,
for the
I'm
most
not a dance professional, believe it or not, but I've actually I made this confession to you at the start of the year, that every year I make a goals list for the year ahead. And it's usually like financial and events and some big things that'll change my life. And I always sneak in, take hip hop dance lessons. And I've literally put that on my goal list probably for 8 years. And I've never taken a single dance lesson. Why is now that everything else in the world is shut down? Why is now the perfect time to take those hip hop dance lessons?
Well, I would definitely say being in the arts and entertainment industry right now and like being a part of all of these specific industries that have been impacted, I would say heavily compared to other industries and what's been going on. I would say this is the perfect time because A, you have the availability to adapt and the time available to figure out how to adapt to something new. I think it's also a great option because it's like the time is always now. It's always about not dwelling on what you said 8 years ago. It's about making a decision today to make a change. And I always say, like, people get nervous about dance classes. You're usually when it came to regular society, like you would not want to go to a dance class because you'd be intimidated by all the other people in the classroom and their skill sets, and so you'd be less inclined to want to show yours because you're like, oh, I know I'm weak. You've already prefaced that you can't do it. So to try and already overcome your mental break is going to be so difficult in a classroom full of people who are like physically watching you, right? The reason I say now is a better time is because you're in the context of your own home, within your own comfort. You have this privilege that you can turn off your camera if you really don't want someone seeing you dance. But you're able to interact the same kind of experience, if not better in some contexts, online nowadays, because you're able to get that face-to-face interaction that also allows you to ask questions and see, like, you get a more intimate feel with the teacher, and it allows you to feel safe because no one's around you to like watch you. Like, people tend to forget, like, we're all behind the camera worried about ourselves and how we show up on this like camera or our class, that like I could care less about someone who's like two visual windows down from me, you know, like I'm too busy about myself or the teacher making sure they don't get upset with me. That it's nice to be able to like realize that it's actually all in your head and you're just here to have fun. And the worst that happens is you don't get a step, but you tried, and you will guarantee to learn something new that you didn't know an hour ago, you know? So I usually try to say, like, take the load off and like enjoy yourself for a minute, because we get so fixated on judgment. That's the whole reason, I think, a huge part of why people are reluctant to dance. Stop judging yourself. Judging, you know, no one else is there. So, and I don't mean it in a way say like we can't have interactions like through it, like online Wi-Fi and everything, but it's the fact that like in a physical aspect, no one's there judging how your knees bent or if something is sitting the right way. Like, no one's there. It's just you. So just live for a second, have fun, make it your own variation, do your own version. You know, that's where art comes from, being creative and organically building. So
For kids that are looking to start dancing for the first time, or maybe for adults like me that are looking to take lessons for the first time, what advice can you give us to literally start on the right foot?
go in with no expectations. That is my best advice. Don't ever set an expectation for yourself or set like a standard that feels unreachable, because a lot of times the reason we limit ourselves with our success to even see something flourish at all is because we're too busy self-sabotaging. So if you've never taken a dance class before, I say this to everyone. Like, I even say this to my mother. She's like, maybe if I could do it, if I was your age, I could do it. I'm like, but you can. You could do this if you cared. It's not like I was born with an extra arm or an extra leg that allows me to do something no one else can do. I have the same set of skills. I just choose to focus my energy on a different type of skill set that someone else may not choose to focus at all on. So if you're someone who's coming in brand new and wanting to learn how to take a dance class or learn how to do a style, just don't set an expectation. Let yourself kind of just run with the waves, like see where that ocean takes you in the classroom, because you may end up not maybe achieving the goal that you went in expecting, but you've left room for something else to be accomplished that you had no idea you'd even attain, you know?
They say there's a personal growth guru named Robin Sharma. So he's the author of The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and the 5 a.m. Club. He's awesome. And he says that anything new is going to be hard at the start, messy in the middle, and beautiful at the end. So maybe I can take that as my mantra to my dance career. When you were a kid dancing, you loved it. What was your first dream as a dancer? Was it to be on tour with a big artist, to be in music videos? Was it to do what you're doing now? What did that look like as a kid?
Oh
Or
my
was it
God.
just for fun, just because you loved it?
You know what? I wanted to be, I knew I liked the arts and entertainment industry, but as a dancer, wow, this is a good question. Um, I want to say that I wanted to like accomplish something like Britney Spears. I wanted to be able to sing, dance, and throw an entire show. And I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to be the singer, but I knew I wanted to be a part of something like that. Like the aspect of touring definitely qualifies in that category, but my mind didn't go like I want to be on tour. It was like I want to be on like a world renowned stage, like
Mm.
something that, you know, you have one of the best dancers or singers in the industry doing, whether it be like J-Lo putting on a really good show, or, you know, Shakira does now. And Britney back then was the it. Like it was Spice Girls or Britney. It was one of the two that I was like, whatever they're doing, I hope I get to like carry a snake on my body one day. And I'm born old enough and beautiful enough with my body that I can do this and be able to say like, yeah, I did it too. So I think that was my big goal as a kid, was aspiring to just see some sort of like one of a kind experience happen.
It sounds like 1997 to 1999 were the big years for you as a kid. I don't
Yeah, that
know.
was like 5 and 7 during that window. Five and
Yeah. Is
seven.
that your prime dance when you're creating your dance dreams? No?
Maybe. I think I've learned to get like youth is definitely a valuable ad for when you're connecting to any type of dancing or choreography. It's like you got to reconnect to like experience and life and like what is it that brought you back. And sometimes it's I have to check myself the same way you feel when it comes to going into a classroom to learn a dance class and say like this is my first time. Sometimes I have to check myself to be like, why are you overthinking this? Just have fun with the music. Let the music lead you. That's how you're going to choreograph. Like, so sometimes the answer is as easy as it seems.
You're mentioning Britney Spears. Have you seen this new documentary that's going viral that everyone's talking about, the
I
framing
haven't
Britney
seen it.
Spears?
I haven't seen it, but I want to. I've been curious to know. I know that like I was aware of everything going on, at least over the last couple of years, with everybody like really spiking in conversation about it. But I haven't actually had the privilege yet to watch it. Have you?
Confession, I just watched it the other day. Yeah.
How was it?
It's insane. I mean, basically it's just like, oh, well, we haven't heard from Britney Spears in about 4 years. And you just think like, I don't know, she's rich, she's doing other things. And it's crazy. I mean, remember when she like lost her mind a long time ago, like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, shaved her head, like attacked
That
someone,
makes sense.
you know, dangling the baby, all these things. Um, it's so nuts. It's basically she ended up, her dad comes in, who is not like a super pronounced figure in her life, and apparently he's not a great dude. He comes in and says she's not fit to look after herself or her finances. So he makes her sign basically the slave agreement as if she was a vegetable, where he can look after everything, including her career. And that's supposed to be temporary. And it's this gray line where nothing has really happened like that before. It's usually with like really, you know, much older people. And now all these years later, she's already done tours and albums. Like she's someone that's capable of steering a global multi-million dollar career, and she's still signed to that slave agreement and she can't get out of it. There's all these weird you know, red tape and catch 22s, and that's basically she's stopped working because she's just under the thumb of her dad. That's like, you're going to tour now, I'm going to make the money, you're going to do this. It's pretty hard to watch. So now there's the whole free Britney movement, and once you watch it, you're like, we got a free Britney here, this is pretty bad. Yeah.
Oh my God. I know that there was conversation that she went to court about it, like what, a couple months ago, but I imagine it didn't get approved. So it's
No.
crazy to think that this was being done at the same time. And wow.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's only about an hour long. So as
Where
a
do we
dan
find it?
we have our ways of finding it, but if you search around, I'm sure you could find it somewhere. It's specific to a certain I think like it's on just Hulu or it's on just one of them.
Okay.
So do your best to find it, and we'll talk if you can't find it. We'll figure
Okay.
something out.
Sounds good.
Um, Now, what has the biggest challenge been for you in carving out your own niche in the dance industry, in the entertainment industry? Because some people are just dancers, and there's a clear path. For you, you have an entrepreneurial spirit. You love dance. You love business. You love social media. You like a lot of different things, and you've been able to create something unique for yourself. What are the challenges of kind of pioneering through in your own way?
I think it's about identifying the difference between when you're people pleasing and when you're actually making a decision for yourself. And I think like you really nailed it on the head in terms of like building your own niche. I think that's the exact issue. And it's like the challenge, I should say, not issue, challenge to overcome. Because when you're in the industry, you're like, especially for myself, because I'm very aware of all the different styles, and there's like in every industry, there's a lot of political aspects of it that you have to consider, and you got to be mindful you're not stepping on any toes, but you also want to pave your own way and you want to like inspire. So it's a constant debate. But I think all those aspects really drive back to the whole point of, you don't want to be a people pleaser. Like you're in this work, and especially in the arts and entertainment, the reason you get into it is not because you're looking for acceptance. You're looking to exert your mind. Like you're looking for a platform to let out what's happening in here. And I think a lot of times we get reluctant with wanting to put our stuff out there, and so it's that initial go that's the hardest part. Once you press go, you can't like decide to back up. Like you've gone, like the world is open to you now. So I think that is the hardest part. It's accepting that you're taking ownership of your life. You're taking this like spearheaded lead. You're not 100% sure where it's going to go, but you're surrendering to that acceptance and also just focusing on what you do know you want. And I think when it comes to like, overcoming that challenge, a huge part of it is identifying like, okay, what is my reasons why? Why did I do this? Why did I start this? And for myself, like, this was a project in my mind for maybe the last 2 years of like just identifying like what things do I wish I had received during my training, what things do I want for myself for the future, what efficiencies would I like to see created for the system, how could I bypass some of the like political aspects I don't like seeing. And so it was like almost like a hamster wheel running to kind of get me to where I did. And although my mastermind yet in my work, I would say like, it gave me a very solid foundation for when I was doubting myself to answer the questions like why.
Hmm. I feel like you're a little bit like me in this way. My favorite thing is to create something from scratch. So, as a musician, writing songs, releasing an album, then you have a product, and it's something that wasn't there before you. And then I love the business side of it of, okay, now I have this CD that has sold 0 copies. How do I get that into the hands of people that might enjoy it? So I love the marketing aspect and the business behind it. Taking the same thing with events, creating an event from scratch, and then it's a sold out event on the day of and it runs smoothly, and writing a book, all those things. I feel like maybe you have some of that within you when it comes to either creating a dance that didn't exist before, creating music videos with your students, and suddenly there's these dances that didn't exist before that came from your mind, your creativity, and there's this product, there's these videos that people can enjoy that if you weren't here, they wouldn't be here. Is that accurate? I get that vibe from you.
Yeah, like, I came from, although I'm a dancer, ironically enough, we do cross over in the side that I do events. Like, I used to be an event planner full-fledged for the city. I had a very secure job. I was working full-time. Like, there wasn't really a reason for me to entrepreneur. I had a pretty, I would say, like, cushioned situation for myself to feel safe. And I think the itch that you just kind of hit on, like liking to create things that, you know, don't exist. And I hated like waiting for someone else to create it. I was like, I need to do it. Or why is it that I can identify this and this doesn't exist yet? Oh, well, no one's really thought of it. It's like, okay, well, I've thought of it. What are we doing with this? You know what I mean? So I think, like, obviously, naturally, I think everybody has that innate nature to want that type of originality to exist in some sort of their work or their legacy before they pass away and carry on to the next place. But I would say, like, the aspect of that is what drove me to make the decision to get into the entrepreneurial side. And I do, just like you said, I have interest in multiple frames. But the interest comes with logical reason. Like, I think that there's a huge strength in carrying versatility in all aspects. So although you may not be a master in all crafts, you have enough knowledge in all of them that you can also align yourself with the right mastery, whether that be an education or an alignment in a partnership that allows you to really maximize on what you can create in those different departments, whether it be marketing or original organic content from the scratch or execution, whatever that may look like.
You remind me of a quote. It's about doing well in the world. And it says, I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that until I realized that I am somebody. So that's you going ahead and creating it. On your social media, you have a lot of dance videos. I saw some videos where it's you dancing on stage, big event, big crowd. What is your favorite live event that you've danced at? Has there been any just wild crowds or wild events? It looks like there are some that I've seen, or maybe that's just a normal day at the office for you. I don't know.
Yes, it is a little bit, but oh my God, I don't know if
we're going way back playback here. We're making you think about your entire career.
They're very good questions. So I'm actually, it's letting my mind kind of enjoy for a minute. Let's think about this. You know what? There's a few that come to mind of ones that stood out to me, but I think it had to do with self-growth development that they stood out. I think sometimes people get under the assumption that it's about the best show. You hit the stage with the most crowd, but sometimes it's the most intimate crowd that makes the most effect in your career because you realize like you have to break this wall where it's not a TV. But I would definitely say traveling to France and performing out in France was very cool. That was probably like one of those moments where I actually had it hit, like I'm meant to be here. But some would say like my largest crowd I can think of. Oh God. And I could be like correcting, I could be quoting wrong on this, but from what my mind recently has collected, I would say when I performed at Rebel in Toronto for the Stefan Dawn concert and we opened and Movado came out to perform with us, that was definitely a massive crowd. It had every confetti streamer you could think of going off during the set and everything going on, and it was definitely the first international piece I had choreographed. So it was very cool to see every visual aid that I wanted to see like come to life actually ignite, and to see it all and be on the stage and like alongside of the dancers and feel that energy. It's like there's something about the way it feels. You're like, wow, this is like a high that you'll never be able to experience any other way, you know?
And Rebel's a big venue. I mean, that's a few thousand people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's about what the house, I want to say the house holds like 5,000 about.
Wow. That's crazy. So you weren't just dancing, you choreographed what everyone was dancing to?
Yeah, I created, like I choreographed the entire stage set. So I was a dancer of my own work.
And is it a natural transition to go from being a dancer to a choreographer? Like, do most dancers also choreograph, or is that a different skill set?
To be honest, it is a different skill set. It's not something that I would say is like, it doesn't go hand in hand. Some people, when you identify them as artists, it's like, some people are meant to be dancers because they really are, they're meant for the screen. You know, they know how to ignite something. There's something like a fuel within them that you just can't explain. You just know that, like, a lot of times they reference it as like they have it. The it is like some performers are meant for it. But however, not every performer or dancer is necessarily meant to be a teacher of their craft, if that makes sense. So choreography is almost like a teacher of their craft because a dancer's like, it's like almost like the display or the artist of the craft, right? So I wouldn't say that it's a tangible skill set that like just crosses over. I think it takes a certain type of visual or like articulate skill set with the way you process information and how you create for it to ignite choreography. But a dancer could be just someone who genuinely loves like essentially an exaggerated way of acting. Like you're creating past just facial movement and movement on the basis of like common knowledge. You're creating past it and identifying how to move and really like bring to life this thought process in someone else's imagination through your movement. So I think that is a skill in itself that completely like not every teacher can do, and not every dancer can be the teacher, because that's just not in their wheelhouse of what they truly are meant to be igniting, if that makes sense.
Where does inspiration come from when doing choreography for a new song? I love, like, I've been going like deep into the dance videos. Like this is my, like, don't tell anybody. People are going to find out through this episode, but I'll watch, I don't know why hip hop, like, I guess, I don't know why, but hip hop dancing just gets me. Like I can feel the groove, and I just love the way people move. And I really like when the choreography, it's like it's paying attention to the song that they're dancing to. Like somehow their movements integrate with the lyrics and the vibe. How do you build from scratch a dance to a song? I mean, as a musician, sometimes you write the melody first, or the music, or the lyrics. Like there's all different ways with music, and there's probably all different ways with dance.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like the perfect way to preface it. Everybody has a different process. Like there's not like really a one formula fits all. But when it comes to choreography, I think it depends. There's two sides of how I usually approach it. I would say either the song inspires me itself, and I'm a visual person, so I can see I feel like I always make jokes that I'm like, that's so Raven. Do you remember that show?
I'm just going to pretend.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, but I've never seen it to really know what you're talking about.
So that's a Raven. Like she's known for having like these episodes where she like has almost like she foresees what the future looks like, and she sees the whole scenario, and then she comes back and doesn't know where that came from, but knows that's going to happen. I always make the joke that's kind of what happens to me when I get inspired by a song. Like I just visually see the whole thing happen in my eyes, even though I'm like sitting in the same room as someone else, and I'll just be like, wow, okay, I know exactly what's happening. And it just happens like truly like that for me. And I'll know kind of at least the general sketch to start. And then I'll be like, okay, I know what I'm talking about, or what the vision is, or what I saw, or what story led in my mind. The other aspect of it is sometimes it comes from like, you don't pick up you don't necessarily play a song because you're wanting to listen to music. Sometimes you'll just like try to turn on music to kill time or help your mind wander somewhere else, especially if you're not doing well, or you're coping with something that's either stressful or like problematic. And I find sometimes that's where some of my best work has come from, is like kind of surrendering and using what my actual experience that I'm going through is to ignite what I want to say through movement, because words can't get it out. Does that make sense?
When you close your eyes and some part of that dance comes to you, sorry, it just froze for a second there. So when you close your eyes and some part of the dance, it just comes to you,
Yeah.
Do you think that's a part of your subconscious? Do you think that's infinite intelligence or source or God or whatever you believe in? Where do you think that comes from? Past experience, creativity?
I don't know. I think like, yes, absolutely. I think that no matter what anybody says, something original really did come from somewhere else. Like you need to be inspired in some capacity to like be able to create. And I think a lot of times just because it's not exactly the same thing doesn't mean it wasn't inspired. So I definitely think subconscious does play a part in it, because subconsciously you don't realize you pick up on so many things even in your day, right? Or in a room, and something as simple as a sticky note could turn into like an entire routine, like you have, or the meaning behind a routine. Like it could be so much. So I think that the subconscious plays a part. I do think like I have no idea why or how it happens. So I'm going to believe that there is a God that is doing it, and that there must be a God for coming like to exist for me to have my mind do the things it does without me not knowing, So I like to believe that there's like a higher faith, and that there's like some sort of higher power taking care of my mind just as much as there's a subconscious. And I think the collaboration of the two plays the part, and you being present. It sounds so layered, but I do genuinely feel like creativity comes from layers. When you're making music, you're probably thinking like, okay, what kind of feeling or emotion do I connect with the beat? And what would make me remember that feeling? And what happened during that time? And like, what was the room smelling like? Or what was the color of the room based on my perception of the sunlight and the dew in the room? And you know what I mean? It starts like it's about like almost like learning to channel back sometimes, or sometimes channel forward, like manifesting what your future wants to be. So you talk about it or you create with it. I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is like people get so fixated on like, oh my God, the pressure of starting, but kind of like picking up a paintbrush on a canvas and just saying like, I have no expectation, let's just go with it. Or having some sort of idea to start. Like, I know I want to use the color red. Like, I know that the song is this song. You know, I don't know what I want to say with it, but I know this song is definitely the song I want to do it with.
Well, while you were asleep, have you ever come up with a dance in your dreams?
You know what? I've actually tried to do that. I've tried to even sleep in and see if I could choreograph the routine in my head. No, it has never happened to me. I would say I've been able to get connected with certain like performances or visual aids when I've done some spiritual healing work, so that I could like get more into like my higher self work. But sleeping wise, no, I've never actually been able to like, if I have, I don't remember it. But no, I've never been able to choreograph just sleeping.
I had one time, it's only happened once, where I was asleep. In my sleep, I woke up. So I'm still in bed, but in my sleep, I was awake and I knew that I was sleeping. So I had complete control. It was one of those, what do they call it? Lucid dream, I guess.
Okay.
So I know that I'm lying in bed. I'm consciously awake, knowing I'm in a dream and I can do anything. I, in my dream, walk into my music room, grab a guitar, and for the entire length of me for real sleeping 8 hours, I was just writing a song and I had complete control, like, oh, these chords and this and these lyrics. And I woke up and I had a new song and I went and wrote it down and recorded it. And it ended up being one of our best songs. And it was just a complete gift from a dream.
Wow.
I'm like, man, if somehow we can tap into being able to use our dreams like consciously for whatever we want, we can be so productive. But
My God, it would be
just
crazy.
not the way it is. Just not the way it is. Now, when I watch dance videos, the crazy stuff that you guys do with your bodies, like my body hurts just watching. What is the worst injury that you've gone through in your career, and how did you recover from that? Some people just don't get injured, but I'm sure
I have had many injuries. I'm definitely the person to be able to say that.
I guess you're not pushing hard enough if you don't have any injuries or something.
Yeah, sometimes I think that's maybe the mantra that I went by when I did it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Sometimes work smart, not hard. You know what? My main injury, like, do you want me to mention an injury that has to do with from dance, or an injury I just faced in general that affected dance?
Both. Give me the goods.
Okay, one that was affected by dance, I would say, would be I broke my toe doing a back handspring. I definitely didn't expect it. I've had the gift of getting the second toe longer than the first toe. And so when I nailed my heel back as I was coming out of a back handspring, I slammed it into the toe and it completely snapped back. I didn't know that I broke it.
So it's from standing, you bend over backwards and your
So
legs
you
go over
stand,
top.
so we call it plieing, but you bend your knees and then you're
Yeah.
going to flip, like you go into a back, almost like you're trying to go into a handstand, but backwards. So you have to jump to actually land on your hands so that you look like you're in a handstand, but you spring off it to land back on your feet. So it's
Okay.
like backwards. So
And when you came back down,
when I
smashed
came
your
down,
toe.
I walked out. So they call it like a walkout. It means like both my feet didn't come together at the same time. One went down and the other followed. And usually you step out of it like the way you would walk in, like walking 1 foot at a time. But I didn't like have control over my legs. So I ended up snapping my toe and I had a broken toe, which definitely impacted me because it was on my feet, and feet are very important in dance. It affected me a lot in terms of just like knowing how to adjust. It was a very uncomfortable feeling. It was something that almost like happened so quickly and like effortlessly. It almost was scary to think like, could I be that lackadaisical with my body and I could just do that? And now what? So that definitely was like my big challenge, probably out of dance. In terms of injuries when it's come to like outside that have affected dance.
Were you in like an MMA fight or something? What happened?
I know, right? No, I actually got hit by a car when I was in my last year of high school. And I completely had my foot run over. So I wasn't able to walk I was bedridden for 3 months. And then I was basically told that I would be able to walk again. But if I did, it wouldn't probably be for like another 6. And I definitely got told I would not get to dance again. So ironically, here I am. But when it had happened, I was in my final year, and it was exactly what like a movie would almost want to tell you. Like, you know, you're in your final year, you're training, you know, people are here to like scout you this year. You're like excelling really well because your focus is in the areas it's supposed to be. And I ended up being like, it was in high school. I was walking through like the student parking lot to go for lunch, and somebody was speeding down one of the parking lots and completely ran me over. And my right foot became useless indefinitely at that point. It was the hardest thing to go through, definitely in terms of a mental break, because you're so angry when you feel physically limited, especially when that's like the only thing you really, really know how to master and feel a sense of control over. And now you've lost that sense of control. So that was definitely like hard. And I think the idea of being told that I wouldn't get to dance again was so debilitating, and it made me feel so distraught that I couldn't even like fathom the idea of what the future looked like anymore. So I would say that it was very trying on all of my mental state. When it came to physical, and once you get past that point of realizing like you're not getting to dance, I lost opportunities that were very big at that time. We had special guest choreographers coming out from LA to teach us and like essentially use this as an audition ground to see your skill set. And I was being groomed for those opportunities, and for them to be gone just like that, and watch someone else take that spot that like, not that you don't wish them the success, but it's frustrating when you know you earned that spot or you could have had it. I think that was very trying, and it teaches you a lot about grit. It teaches you a lot about like the mental capabilities attached to success, and it's not just about having the talent. And I know that in the long run, I've actually learned to see that it fit me for the better, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I had maybe had things change then. But it was definitely trying in terms of like how it makes you feel when it comes to you feeling capable or like strong at what you do, and that's all you knew, and you've lost that capability. However, when it came to actually like overcoming that problem, I think that the mental also is your biggest friend, because as much as it can debilitate you, it can also be the thing that takes you completely into a different realm of capability. And it was like 4 months later, I was not only walking, but I was actually back to dancing, and I was competing. So I think it tells you a lot about like mind over matter, and the fact that like, if you really want something, people can tell you that you don't want it, but it doesn't mean it won't happen. It just means you have to work harder for it.
And it's not just the physical challenge, but it's your identity as a dancer. Like if you've been a dancer your whole life, those are your friends are dancers, your vision of the future for your career is in dancing. When they tell you you're never going to dance again, man, that's like a whole paradigm shift. That's like the foundation is gone. So, and that might even be harder than the physical. At one point, I had been doing music full time most of my adult life, and I transitioned more over to the business side. And you have this moment, this identity crisis where you're like, well, if I'm not Joel the musician, who am I? And you have to rebuild that identity. So I don't know if you went through that as well.
That's exactly it. Like, and I think that's the scary part, is realizing like you've based your entire identity on a specific skill. And it kind of goes back to that whole like lesson you learn when you say like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But then I constantly have this like paradox happening, because one half of me says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the other one says, well, if you spread yourself too thin, you're not a master of anything. So really, like, do you have anything to stand for? So it's this constant balance and battle. And I think that's truly been the essence of not only that circumstance, but also shifting, like you said, into, okay, creating your own system and creating your own program and building a company and having these visions that haven't been ever done before. Like, how does that look? And I think it's part of it is just being okay with not knowing and being okay with shifting and trusting that your skill set, like your background in music, I'm sure has allowed you to have a lot more knowledge in different areas that people might have lacked in the business side of the music industry. And you've been able to almost like spearhead or address that problem because you come from the performance side. And that's one thing that I think I started to use as a rationalization point to stop beating myself up like I stepped off the table as a performer because now I'm teaching or doing other things. It's like, no, it took me acquiring what I did to be able to do what I do today really well. You know?
Now you took a break from dance and it was a long one. It was like a decade-long break. Did that have to do with the injuries or is that something else completely?
No, you know what? It had to do with like the other classic story of hearing like a young artist, a dancer especially, being told by their parents that this isn't the end goal. This is like nice to have, but you got to go get an education and get a career. And I think that's like a very big battle that I think everybody still deals with in many ways is like they have parents who have expectations you're going to be an accountant or something in business or something like in health or working for the government. Like it's very standard. And their vision of entertainment is not a career. So it automatically gets instilled into your mind that that's just a nice activity to have on the side. It couldn't possibly be where you make your income from. And so I focused my energy. I got into university. I gave up dancing. I focused all my energy on just like, getting my degree and getting like clarity. And my way of leading back into dance really came from the fact that I realized while I was away at school that I was studying to get into psychology because I do find that human mind very fascinating. And I think that there's a true art to psychology. And I think that it bleeds into everything else of life if you really understand it. So I spent that time under the impression I was going to go into psychology to become like a guidance counselor. And like, to be honest, that it sucks to even say, even back then, like I almost saw that as like such a settled job that almost felt like I was already at 60 years old sitting in a chair, like it didn't sound exciting, but I knew that what my goal out of this was because I wanted to help people be happier. And I felt like teens and young adults are the ones who are like the most malleable and also the most influenced. And that's when most of the dynamic or extreme things that happen in life happen during that window. So I wanted to spearhead that problem. And then I realized that I was very emotionally involved and attached to that type of work without getting into it as of yet. So I shifted my perspective on how do I adapt to something I still like doing, but it's still business, but it doesn't make me feel like I've lost the arts and entertainment, which is what led me into event planning. And then event planning spearheaded the dancing back in my life because I started planning events and seeing shows. And I would have so many criticisms on things I could have seen better for the performance or the overall stage presence. And how can you make it more dynamic and more enticing to the mind and the community and like people to feel included and it'd be more diverse. Like I could just pick it so much. And I realized like maybe the problem was that I had tried so hard to not be attached to that world because I had just accepted, oh, well, someone told me I can't have it, bye. And really it found its way creeping back into me in some capacity that I got to a point where I was like, well, there's not really any job out there that houses everything I can do. So what does that look like for me now? And that's kind of where when I did shift and I started dancing again, it got to a place when I had realized like I was lacking happiness in that department. I was being fulfilled in work, sure, but it wasn't fulfilling me the same way. So I started taking dance classes, and then slowly over like the course of 3 years, it's like they bled into each other. It was like everything I was learning from a business etiquette side, working for the government and understanding proper systems and just like the organizational side of it. It felt like inevitably over time, being a part of the entertainment side, I was recognizing like what things could I be helping spearhead to make a better efficient system in the industry of arts and entertainment, because it's not at all the same as other industries and how they work as a system, you know?
Yeah, Steve Jobs has a famous quote saying, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back." So with you, you have the industry, you have the injury, you have time off, you have going to school, you have the critics, you have getting a job, going into live events, seeing things that, you know, there's a problem that you could help fix. You have the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like now you can actually connect the dots of how you ended up where you are now, and probably being stronger and offering more value now than had you just gone straight
Right.
through as a dancer.
Yeah, I feel like there's more. I almost find that there's more value in the position I'm in now compared to what I was, because being a dancer is an amazing experience, or being a performer is an amazing experience. But I feel like I offer more in this position that fulfills my soul and helps fulfill others. So I feel like it was a better switch than staying in the position I was in, because I almost felt stifled as a performer. Like, I love to do it, but I felt like I only could offer one thing or one way, you know, whereas I wanted to offer so much more. So it feels like the shift was inevitably going to happen. It just came to like, when are you as a mental willing to accept the shift?
So knowing that you have so much more to offer, different skills, uh, more value, all this stuff, is that where your production company started, the EB Entertainment?
Yeah, you know,
To house it all together is one thing.
it was because I started out with just a vision. Like, I started creating, I was brainstorming, I was just laying down a lot of thoughts. And I honestly, it just kind of came. Like, I didn't really prep. There was not like this long term, okay, this is the vision, it's EB Entertainment, and this is how it's going down. It wasn't like that. It was truly progressive, but it was because I was trying to identify, like, how do you house all the things I want to offer and the things that people are looking for help with. And, you know, it's one thing being a performance coach, and I call myself that over being a dance teacher, because I feel like I've worked past just the dance skills. Like, I'm working with you, asking you internal questions that have to do with your psyche. I'm working with you on a performance in the face level. Like, what's happening? What if you didn't have any body limbs that you could move? And what would you do with your face to still show me a whole performance? Like, it's more, if that makes sense, than like what someone could like what the average person might be able to obtain or understand from like the title of a dance teacher. And I'm not stifled in one skill, or I'm not set in one style. So I don't want to like inhibit myself. So I felt like that range was right. But at the same time, you get to a place where you start working with people in that capacity, and they become so like heavily invested now in their art, and they recognize that they want more. And now they're looking for almost like guidance that's past just being the class, like the 2-hour session. So inevitably over time, you're either working as a mentor, or you end up evolving into management, because you're starting to now work with building their brand, because they're looking for that alignment. And it became, how do you house those aspects of like artist management and choreography and performance coaching? And you also can dance, but you love creative direction. And it all sits in the same world, but there's not a title that houses all that. So it became like, okay, well, I guess now the next question comes to, how, like, what kind of company are you envisioning? And because creative direction is my passion, like, I genuinely love creating that way, I'm a visual person, felt right to align into like creating an entertainment company that kind of was like a threefold. So it allowed me to say, okay, I can work with you as someone who is new to the industry but knows you want it, or is still young and needs guidance. I can help build that skill set with you in the capacities you need. Or I can work with you in terms of like, okay, you have the skill set, but you need like business etiquette now. That's kind of where the management comes in. Or it's, you're just a client who's reaching out because you love my creative visions. You love the ideas I run with. You like the art I produce. You don't necessarily need management. You don't necessarily need coaching, because that's not your focus right now. So I just want to create something. Okay, so that's when I would fall in that category. So it just kind of was like finding the right way to house all the departments of what I can offer. And that's where the entertainment company essentially began. And it just had the nice ring to it after that. It felt like as if I didn't really have to prep it. I've never really gotten to have my name be it's never been known in this industry. Like EB is a very well-known name, it seems, and like a lot of people do recognize it, and it has its trademarks in different industries, but no one's really touched the arts and entertainment with my name. So I felt like it was a nice fit to say like EB Entertainment. Like everything I create really is a form of entertainment.
That's awesome. And you just launched your new website, so congratulations. Why is it important that you're properly represented online and on social media?
I think it really comes down to like the professionalism side. People are going to take you seriously and treat you professionally if they recognize that you invest enough to care about the details. Like I do talk about this a lot, the devil in the details. When you are sloppy with your social media, when you're careless with what you have to say, when you're not using your voice effectively, when you're not creating with purpose, like these are all different ways that I just genuinely, I ask the question, like, how do you expect to be treated like the next whoever that idol may be in your department if you don't hold yourself there? And part of holding yourself there is recognizing that like the website can be long and it can be daunting, or social media can get also very extraneous on times. But if you don't have the grit and the dedication to it, why do you expect someone to then pay you more than someone else? Because this bleeds into all aspects of you. So representing yourself well online is not just about the picture persona to me. Like I think it's the secondary focus. You want to first build like your name and your reputation and the actual tangible products or the results first. But hosting yourself online is a sense of trust, and people want to trust you to work with you. And if you don't give them quality work that shows that you're proud of what you're putting out, or that you think your work is worth showing, why would they trust you with their time or their money for that matter?
Why is it important that people align their passion with their purpose? So they can be passionate about something, but then if there's not a purpose to it, it's kind of all for nothing.
Well, I think the joke of that is that for anything that you are passionate about, there's a reason you are. So there is a purpose. But the real alignment is that like my belief is that we have this time on like earth because we all are meant to be doing something that's truly unique to us. And like I do believe in God and that there's a God out there. So I believe that we're all really, really talented at something. We don't necessarily know. And a lot of people may spend their entire life not actually taking time to search for it. Passions are the like underlying factors that help us identify what our purpose here is, because the things you're usually the most passionate about are the things that really, when you hear the quotes like you should never work a day in your life, it's because somebody is truly passionate and just doing what they feel like is calling for them to do, right? And if you feel like there's a break, like your passion is shopping, for example, and you love designers and you love all these styles, but you're spending every day working as a cashier, you're not aligning with your passion with your purpose. You're purposefully making money as a cashier, but you could be making that same kind of income, if not more, by aligning it with the thing you're really passionate and love doing and want to educate your time in. So I feel like it works as a disservice. So I say it's very important. And I work with people, not that I only work with people who do this, but I really challenge anybody I do work with or I work in my clientele with, is asking them that question. Like, why are you in this? What is it for? Why, what is your end goal? And sometimes you may not know, but you might have an idea. Like, you know, I've really wanted to see fusion happen in music. So I want to like spearhead that. Great. That doesn't have to be the end goal, but that could be the reason why you focus your passion here or why you spend your energy here. And if you can't answer that to yourself, then you're going to look back at your life saying, I feel like I wasted it. And I don't want to ever have someone live their life with regret. I don't want to encourage it. So I feel like it's very important. If you can rationalize it and you feel fulfilled, then absolutely there must be some sort of purpose behind the passion of why you make the decisions you do. But if you can't align the two, it's not because they don't align. It's because you haven't taken the time to introspect and think about why.
There's nothing but time during this pandemic for the introspect, for sure. What are the top traits that you look for in a client before taking them on with your business? So obviously someone with passion, someone that knows their purpose, or you help them with that. But any other traits that you look for? What makes a good dancer a good dancer? I need to know, because when my dance career takes off, I need to be ready. So
exactly. I look for focus. I really, really value people who are determined and focused, and um, they carry a sense of humbleness to them. It's almost like you want to work, nobody wants to work with the person in the room who's the loudest, always telling you what to do. They want to work with the person who's malleable, who's open to growing and letting you lead with them and having a sense of trust in the room. So even if you come in and you don't have full clarity on what you want, but you can at least, you're willing to try and you're willing to work with someone and you're willing to like acknowledge you don't know everything in the room. I think there's a real beauty in that. And that's a huge part of making me decide. If I feel like there's a sense of arrogance or attitude that I'm already sensing from the off bat, it's like your first time you're meeting with a client is like your honeymoon stage. This is the best part. You know what I mean? Everything from here gets harder. So if I already get that sense from the upfront that you're gonna like, you don't have a filter, or you don't recognize that there's two people in the room, or you're not like emotionally intelligent, like you don't pick up on both people in the room. It's not that I don't think those are things that I wouldn't work with, but it doesn't make me exactly inclined to want to start there. I'm like, okay, now we have a bigger battle to sort out, because I can't focus on your talent or helping you ignite if your ego is bigger than everything else in the room, you know? And like, I think that's where people get to like very confused with what the difference between cocky and confident is. Confident is knowing you've worked your ass off to get to where you are, and that you are confident that with what you know, you are confident in, but with also acknowledging that you don't know everything. Cocky is when people come in acting like they're the best thing that's walked in this room. They know everything, and you are actually just wrong and almost inconvenient for questioning them. It's that difference that makes it. It's not about not being good about it or saying like, I'm not good. I will work with both parties. I just want to make sure somebody recognizes like you're in the room to learn or to grow. And part of growing is learning, whether it be together or from the person you're working with. Like that's just kind of how it works. So I look for determination, focus, openness, and I would say humbleness. Like those are my key factors I look for. And then I'd say the rest kind of inevitably goes. I don't think there's anything that I would say like, oh, if you're not smart enough, like I'm not that type of person, because everything that we learn in life, we're capable of teaching and we're capable of getting stronger at. So I don't think that weaknesses, or the quote weaknesses is the term I would say like I look for. I appreciate people who understand like we're all human and we all deserve respect and value.
It looks like your production company is releasing professional dance videos like every few days, every week, every couple of weeks. How much of that process are you a part of, from choosing the location to film at, choreographing the dance, having the professional video and audio equipment, the editing afterwards, the releasing and promotion? Like, is that from scratch? You do everything? Is it you hire third party? What does that look? I'm just, as a creative person, as a business person, I'm just curious what that looks like for you.
I am involved in every single thing. I create all of it, but I do work with parties to surrender like certain aspects. Like this is kind of going back to that whole, like if you know what you need, but you also know enough about it, and you also recognize it's not your mastery, then it's just being smart about your alignment. So I create the ideation. I do the location scouting, at least thus far. I am the one who handles the whole storyboard. I create the whole vision. I choreograph it. When it comes to the actual execution of videography, I would say I hire a videographer. He's a friend of mine who we work together, and he's like my right-hand man now, who does all of my work with me. I aligned myself with a third party so that he would be able to do the actual like creating an execution of like knowing, because I'm not technically savvy with a videographer. See, like, look, I can't even speak that today. I'm not technically savvy with specific cameras. I'm still educating myself on that, and I have value, and I'm not ashamed to speak up and say like I'm still learning. I'm just as much of a student as I am a teacher to someone. So I think that there's value. So I do hand off that piece. The actual, again, execution of the editing gets done through the same guy who does the videography, because he's kind of like a one house spot for me too. But between the two of us, we still spearhead the entire project from start to finish. So I'll lead most of the prep work up until execution day. And then we'll work together on execution day in like collaboration. So he's getting the shots, but I'm leading the schedule and I'm sorting out what's getting done where. And I'm also making sure the dancers are prepared before so that they're aware of what their expectations are. Like my hands are 100% in the whole thing, but I don't necessarily think that's something I'm looking to do for the rest of my life. I think in order to grow and be truly effective at any type of work, there comes a point where you have to be willing to align and surrender some of the load and work it with other people. So I hope that in the coming seasons and years, I'll be able to have a little bit more of a team in place. But at the moment, yes, I'm like a one-man show for the most part. And I'm very thankful that I've got like almost a sidekick that helps me out for it.
The pandemic has changed everything. I'm sure you're doing more stuff in person, maybe lessons in person, maybe coaching in person, maybe events in person. You've been able to transition to doing a lot of stuff online, online courses, all the stuff I just mentioned. What was that transition process like for you? And why is it important that people find ways to make money from home online now? I mean, we've seen how risky it is to just have your one source of income, because clearly it can be taken away from you regardless of what industry that you're in.
Right. To be honest with you, I started this company in COVID. So I actually just started it out like at the beginning. So I haven't known it to be outside of the quadrants of COVID. I think that it was all about just being very mindful and educated in all the like terms and restrictions and knowing what I could and couldn't do to be able to figure out what was possible. When it comes to the adaptation of online, it was definitely hard because the experience of being in person for dance classes is almost the experience in itself that you pay for. It's the overall energy and the feel in the room. However, I think that there's value in it. I think that just like any bad situation, you can see a silver lining in it. And I think the silver lining behind this whole thing was like realizing, I've taught a lot of dancers to say, why don't you think about it this way? What if I'm a choreographer and I am out in LA right now and I know I have a show coming to Toronto and I am not going to be in Toronto for another couple weeks, okay? But I have the choreo down and I don't have time to teach you it because I only have so much time before the show begins. So I'm going to send it to you online. How are you going to learn it if you've never learned to adapt to online learning? But now you're going to relay that choreography on a stage that's massive for someone like the Air Canada Center, like someplace like that. How would that look? And I think this is something that I really tapped into for our industry, because recognizing like that actually is a very real-time thing that could happen after this, because you've now learned an efficiency that saved you money in studio, saved you time with the choreographer going in and doing the same amount of legwork. So you're becoming more cost effective, but you're also being mindful of people's time and knowing how to maximize on the time that you do have. So it just changed the way I perceived it. It still is hard. And like, there's never, like I said, it's like the in-person experience is what you're paying for, because it's those small details. It's the corrections and something like me telling you to turn out your leg and showing you how much to make you like understand it. But it doesn't mean that it's not a challenge that can't be overcome or can't be valued for different purposes. So it hasn't affected me as much in terms of that, because I think, again, it's very much about mindset shifting. But it is a challenge in the sense that, nothing will ever be the way it will be in one context to the other. Like the experience of online learning will never be compared to an in-person in general. And it's not because I think one's better than the other. I think we know one way our whole life, but the other side of it, it doesn't mean that like it's wrong. It just means it's not been tapped into and how to be utilized truly.
I'm going to rapid fire through a few questions here as we wrap up. How much do you miss being able to go out and dance?
A lot. I miss it a lot. I definitely think that I look forward to the day I can hit a dance floor comfortably and not think about like, not on a stage or a screen, because I've already done that like during this time, but like when it comes to like live performance, that feeling of getting back onto like a rebel stage will be very cool.
Dancers have an amazing culture and an amazing community. Why is that, and how can other professions cultivate that type of culture?
I think it's the importance of inclusivity. I think that dancers really value like they take the time to value and appreciate other people's talents and skills that are still offered in their industry, and like they can recognize it's not their skill, but maybe it's something they hope to acquire or they hope to learn from. And I think there's such a beauty in being so collaborative and being open-minded. I love that dancers do showcase that aspect, that like, you know, cultures, races, whatever the context may be, genders, it's
Different
like
ages.
they don't discriminate. And that really is the beauty of like peace on earth, I put it as. And I really do value it that way. So I think when it comes to other departments, I think it's just the fact that, again, we make things so complicated where they don't need to be. It's as simple as like just being inclusive and knowing, like, treat others the way you want to be treated. If you were the one walking into the room and you're offering something new, you would want a room that supports you, not a room that's ready to rip you down, you know?
Hmm. A quick question about TikTok. So I know you found success on TikTok. I know you were doing some Facebook lives or some Instagram lives, talking about not just dancers, but entrepreneurs. Other people can use TikTok to find an audience, to network, to offer value. It looks like some of your videos have received a million views. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe my numbers are skewed. But how can anyone, not just dancers, use TikTok? Just a few quick tips to help
Uh,
a brother out.
there are two things. I would say public speaking is a huge one of it. One of them, as I can't speak today. Public speaking would be one of them, because I think that when you learn to grow comfort on seeing yourself on screen and like identifying what your microaggressions are, like an eyebrow raise or how your face reacts to something, the more you become self-aware, the more like skilled you become at any type of like craft or work that you do, because you're very aware of yourself and how you hold yourself. So I think that there's a huge benefit in that, and also learning how to articulate and how your choice of mouth and how you say things will pick up to people, and seeing it all happen through TikTok by just picking up on like a funny skit or reenacting something is really beneficial. The other thing about TikTok is like, it's like a 15-second commercial. You know what I mean? You can, if you utilize our minds and create something, you can sell anything through something like TikTok the same way you can sell it on a commercial, whether it be YouTube or a television. Like, you just have to be mindful about like, how would you want to receive that? So when it comes to something like TikTok, TikTok is the most relatable platform these days because it's real time. It's not a photo. It makes you feel like you're in it with them, or that there's something funny to it, or it's educating. Utilize that and figure out like, what is your audience in whatever industry you're in. What would you want your ideal audience to like learn from you or see, or if you being in your own craft, what would impress you from someone who's like you? And like knowing how to use that as a marketing tool to be able to bring people into what you do for a living, you know?
So it's 15 seconds max per
It's
video.
30 seconds, I think. I
30
think it's like
seconds.
usually I recommend 15 seconds for effect. That's my knowledge of TikTok. Like,
Okay.
my knowledgeable side says 15 seconds. It's like, is always your safe. Like, you want 15 seconds, but you could go up to 30 or 45, I think. But again, it's like and it's an attention span. Like, just like a commercial, you get like, you're going to get someone in the first 3 seconds. If you don't get them in the first 3 seconds, chances are they're not going to stay for 45 seconds in. So for you to get someone to stay on with you for 45 seconds means you have to have them hooked. Right? So marketing, this goes right back to that marketing conversation.
Last question. If you could go back to I don't know, 10-year-old Stefanie Eby, and with whatever age you are now, with all that experience since then, all the learning and the experiences and the courses and books and mentorship and all those things, if you could go back and whisper in your 10-year-old self's ear some words of advice, what would you tell yourself? It's funny. I have, it depends the personality, but I have someone that's super in tune and spiritual. They're like, I love you. I love you. Like, just, saying nice things. But what comes to mind if you were talking to your younger self?
I would say stop being so hard on yourself. You're going to figure it out. You're smart. You're going to be smart. it's gonna be fine. And like, just have fun. Cause I feel like I spent too much time, even as my 10-year-old self, always like racing to see what the future looked like. I was 10 being like, I want to be 16, you know? So like, be present. I think that's my biggest advice to myself even now. Be present, take a break. You don't need to know everything. Everything that you need to know will come, and it will come when it's supposed to.
Amazing. So that was choreographer. There you go. Oh my God. That was choreographer. Yeah. I can just say words however I want. Choreographer, that's creative director, that is performance coach, Miss Stefanie Eby. So thank you for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I'd love to hear from you guys. My goal is to grow this podcast organically, where you're giving me feedback on topics you'd like me to cover and guests you'd like me to interview. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel, and on Twitter at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.